Hi everyone. We will be starting in a couple of minutes. Now, I would like to have some ground rules, and obviously, I would like to introduce myself. So, my name is Yulia Moiseeva. I'm a registered migration agent, and I've been registered migration agent since 2010. I'm running my own migration practice with my small team of people here on the Gold Coast, Queensland. And my practice is catering for employed sponsored visas, skilled visas, students, graduates, visitors, citizens, also business people, and national invasion visas. So we are catering a scope of visas, but not protection and asylum visas. So this is the visas we do not deal with. A little bit of ground rules for today. So I would like to give you my own opinion on how we performed through 2024-2025 program year, which is usually starting in July and ending now in June. So the idea of the session to give you a run through of all the visas, how they perform, what to expect, how to prepare yourselves, and tips from myself. So do not treat that session as personalized advice or consultation. So it's a general information and my opinion. I would appreciate if you would like to ask any questions to wait till I finish my conversation and introduction. So you can place your questions in the chat. Once I finished overview how it's all performed through 2024-2025, I will be able to answer all your questions you may have. So hold on for the questions and let's begin. First of all, I would like to notice that migration has been always politically influenced. And if you notice that this year we have elections and the same political party stayed, so that means that we may still be focused on employed sponsored visas compared to skilled visas, because the political party that's currently in session, Labour Party, has been always focused on employed sponsored visas historically. The migration itself become more controlled and more determined by the state and government. So depending on the needs of the whole country, the selection of skilled visas, as an example, been very slow throughout this year compared to previous years. And also what's pretty noticeable, that absolute bare minimum on the English level is no longer sufficient. So a lot of people have this misconception that if you achieve competent English, which is equivalent IELTS 6 or PTE 50, then skill migration on the minimum points of 65 will be the way to go. So some occupations may have this threshold satisfied and at the same time receive the invitations throughout this year. However, the majority of occupations have a really high competition rate, where the states and territories emphasize for this year that they would like to see the candidates with superior English. So primary applicant is better off be with superior English, where the secondary applicant, if you have secondary applicant in your application, better be also skilled, meaning with skill assessment and with sufficient competent English as well. So those times where one applicant was able to collect 65 points and be able to get invitation like that, unfortunately gone. So this time, and I believe the trend may stay, it's a high competition where leading states who gave 190 invitations was Victoria, New South Wales, WA, South Australia, and Tasmania. So Tasmania usually invite in candidates who are already in Australia working. That's a majority of their selection. Where 491 visas with the leading state of Victoria, WA, and New South Wales. So as you can see, a lot of states had sufficient places, but because also a lot of people applied, we're talking about, as an example, 40,000 people applied for Queensland, where the selection was only for 600 places per visa subclass. So it's pretty high demand of the places and low places available for the candidates. So the competition is quite high, and a lot of people also misinterpret the whole process. So if you already have sufficient English and you are starting the process, say, with skill assessment, then the whole wait from the time you submit your expression of interest till you actually get an invitation may be around a year or even more, without any influence from any side. So if you have any agent who's promising you that you will receive the invitations, that's not correct. So nobody can influence actually receiving the invitation, and that's to make the process really uncertain. So unfortunately, for every state, they are running their own rounds of invitations as they pleases. So we cannot track that every quarter or every month on that day it will be certainly the invitation route. Unfortunately, it doesn't go like this. So it's a random process, the same as 189 visa, much wanted permanent independent visa. Invitations for last year was only run in September and November, and up until now we have no more invitation round, which is pretty sad because you cannot plan ahead, and the whole system of skilled migration become really frustrating in terms of wait. A lot of people really losing hope. And at the same time, even if you get the invitation, say in a year time, then the next stage will be to wait for the actual visa to get processed, and that's controlled by Department of Home Affairs. You cannot pretty much influence all you want that you need that visa right now. Department will not listen unless your occupation is prioritized as of now for processing. For example, currently, psychotherapists or trades are prioritized same as medical occupations. So if your occupations is within the prioritization list, then the application will be processed way quicker. We're talking about around 3 months time after lodgement. If you are within normal occupation, you may expect year, maybe even year and a half of processing time. So giving you the whole process within 2-3 years from the very beginning until you actually get the visa. And what's interesting to notice from my side as a professional, so a lot of people been waiting for so long, and then they are not actually preparing to relocate. And once the decision hit and we get the positive decision for the families, they are not rushing into relocation because simply they're scared whether they get a job or not, what to do. And a lot of people, again, prefer to wait until the visa is granted, but then they have to move and they have no clue what's the next step. So my advice for that scenario, if you're waiting for your skilled migration from overseas, please do make steps to prepare yourself to move once the visa is granted, because I believe that's the whole idea of the process, to get the independent visa and relocate as soon as possible. So make your own homework done prior to visa is granted. Select where you're going, how you're going to get a job, how you settle your kids to school, etc., etc., etc. So that can be done while you're waiting. Don't wait to the very actual grant of the visa, and then you will open a whole new can of worms, and then the process will even get longer. Because when we're talking about getting 189 or 190 visa permanent residency, then there is no problem. Sometimes the department will grant you the whole year to make your first move, and not necessarily you have to relocate fully. You can just visit the country to activate the visa. Then, if we're talking about 491 visa, it's a different story because this visa are meant to design for the applicants to come to Australia as soon as possible and then live in Australia for at least 3 years to then make it to permanent residency. So in this case, you need to move as soon as you can, pretty much within the first 6 months, in order to make it work within your current visa condition. So professional and skilled migration does still exist. However, the process of that become really uncertain and really heartbreaking to wait for so long to get the much needed visa. However, as I said, it's a government controlling the intake, so actually nobody can influence that, but the government needs and what the government want at this moment of time. Talking about the next step for skilled professionals, it's certainly employer-sponsored visas, where a lot of changes happen in December 2024. And I would say the good changes happen because the list for 186 direct entry visa has been expanded, allowing a lot of occupations to now consider 186 visa for employer-sponsored migration. And interestingly enough, if we're talking about 482 temporary visa with employer and 186 permanent visa with employer, actually employer will have less obligations while going through 186 visa process rather than going for 482 visa process. But then the selection of visa and whether employee is going to be willing to do 482 or 186 will depend on the business needs, the retention of staff, and also depends on applicant's profile. So, some people may not be able to consider 186 direct entry based on the profile. The other visa that kind of went into the background is regional migration, 494 visa, because it's basically become longer wait to transit to permanent residency. So a lot of people now trying to avoid it because 186 direct entry comes into play with a lot of occupations available and pretty much similar criteria where 186 can be used with any business where the occupation will be in the demand compared to 494 visa to be used only by regional business. So this kind of visa not become as trendy anymore. And a lot of people are now looking at Dharma agreements and Dharma visas simply because there are a lot of concessions, age concessions, English concessions, semi-skilled occupations. So it's difficult to get the sponsorship and get the sponsor because a lot of businesses are so local and so regional. They may not even be aware that they can get the staff on Dharma visas. So Dharma, compared to normal employer-sponsored visa process, it's much longer in terms of steps. But again, in the long-term run, with a good preparation and good planning, it actually will benefit employer to retain and attract the global workforce and enrich their business this way. So in terms of priorities from the government, certainly due to the fact that skilled visas become unpredictable, a lot of people who are currently in Australia are on the hunt for employer-sponsored visas. For those who are overseas, if your occupation allows you to get sponsorship and even try to work for Australian employers, I would encourage you to explore these opportunities because, again, you don't have to be sometimes physically in Australia to start working, depending on your occupation. So I would suggest to explore those options even when you lodge your expression of interest and you're already waiting for potential outcome because it takes so long. And if you find an employer who will be willing to relocate you, then you can utilize employer-sponsored visa to come to Australia quicker. So that's the mix of visas. And again, with the current state of program year, I can tell that a lot of people jumping from visas to visas. So it's no longer a process of one visa to get permanent residency, unless obviously you're getting 189 and 190 visa. So a lot of people and a lot of migration pathways are now evolving into variety of visas, compared to previous years when you simply get invitation so quickly for skilled visas, and then you pretty much all set and ready to go on your own in Australia without the need of getting sponsored. So one more visa, 491 family sponsored, is also still available within the skilled visa domain. However, the places are so low that you simply cannot rely on that visa anymore for any selection. I'm not sure if anyone received any invitation, but it's really, really low numbers. Also, young professionals who waiting or attempting to wait for skilled visas from overseas and tired of doing that, considering student visas. However, last year we had a massive update on graduate visa, which is usually paired with student visa to allow applicants to come and study and then to progress throughout their skill journey to get the work experience, etc. The government decided to slash the minimum age to 36. So the applicant had to be 35 inclusive to apply for 485 graduate visa on the normal scenario, unless it's certain countries or unless it's research programs, eligible research programs. So that left a lot of people devastated last year, especially for those who started student visa journey some time ago, and nobody could predict that the government actually slashed the age criteria so harshly, I would say, to people who are already in the process. Unfortunately, that happened last year in July. And again, a lot of people were forced to consider employer-sponsored visa in the absence of 485 visa, or consider further study at the different level, depends on what level they originally come to Australia, to progress to, for example, master by research, just simply to allow them then consider graduate visa. So student visa journey is no longer, you get the student visa, you get the PR. So it's evolved through the lifetime of the program. And now I would say it's not guaranteed that even if you select certain courses, you're going to be guaranteeing to get the PR. That's not the case anymore. So for those who are considering student visa, my advice would be to really consider the career pathway and explore the opportunities, what state is preferred for this and that career opportunities. Because, for example, if IT professionals are going to Tasmania in the hope of getting the career built there, that's a wrong move. So you need to know the statistics, and it's a plenty of websites, government websites with statistical information, depending what sort of career pathway you would like to choose. So you really need to consider what sort of qualification will be right for that career pathway, whether you will get a graduate visa or not, whether you will then need to invest into further study or not. If you are approaching the end of your course, you will have to make every single attempt to get employed sponsorship or to get full-time employment on 485 visa in order to then progress to employed sponsored visa without wasting time, simply because a lot of people getting all relaxed. If we finish the degree or finish eligible study, we get 485 visa, and then we're going to be sitting there for another 2 years thinking what to do. So do not make that mistake, because everything needs to be executed at the right time, and you don't have much time while you're on temporary visas. So my advice to everybody who is considering migration now, and further in 2025, 2026, is to come up with a solid plan for your particular case. We're doing it on a daily basis for applicants through consultations. So you need to understand what sort of visas will be eligible for your particular circumstances. If you're coming with a partner, can partner contribute? Can partner retrain? Can partner find a job? So where are you going? What location? In this location, what are the options for state sponsorship? A lot of considerations, but it needs to be wrapped up as a solid plan. Of course, the requirements for variety of visas do change from time to time, and last year was really rough on changes, especially for us working in migration space. It's really stressful exercise to advise and wait for the changes and advise again, retweak the strategy for the clients. However, even if something changes, you can still tweak your plan as long as you have a solid plan. Do not come to Australia without any plan. Do not come in Australia on the visitor visa and then consider that magic should happen and then you will get yourself sorted. By the way, another change is for student visa from last year. Students are not allowed to lodge student visa application from visitor visa anymore, which put this pathway to the end. However, if you're considering migration to Australia in the longest term, my suggestion would be also to consider coming to Australia to have a look whether this country is right fit for you. If you would like to do it, the best way of doing it is on the visitor visa, which is the first visa to consider. Then if that's granted, it may open the opportunity for you to explore any job opportunities while you're in Australia. You will not be permitted to work, but you will be permitted to explore work opportunities, talk to recruiters, talk to the companies, undergo technical interviews as an example. Then explore the study options if you're aiming to get a study at a later stage. So getting to know the campuses, getting to know where are you going to be going and how it is there. It's a good move. Otherwise, you may be investing so much time and your money coming to a college that is not going to be good fit for you. If you're aiming for partner visa, again, visitor visa can be a good move as a first step to get to know the country, see your partner's family and friends to understand whether this relationship will be good for you. A lot of changes for processing time, I would say, as well for 2024, 2025, observed by my office, because we're dealing with all these visas on a weekly basis. And I can tell that some people are still waiting for 482 employer-sponsored visa lodged in late 2024 to be processed now. So that's really that's really challenging for families, because we will not lock transition until 482 visa is granted. And if you remember, department promised to get processing 482 new 482 visas for as quickly as several days or at least several weeks. However, from time to time, departments still drowning in their own applications. And again, you can monitor processing time published on the Department of Home Affairs website. However, they are changing the way that pleases departments, so we cannot actually rely on them in the actual terms, whether the visa will be processed within that time. So in terms of processing time, if your application is beyond the processing time, you can lodge the complaint, and a lot of people get scared that the complaint will influence the decision of the application, or it's not going to be the case. And you can legitimately lodge the complaint and force the department to look at your application this way. Usually it works, and there's no harm for your application this way. Of course, you have to be polite and reasonable when you are preparing your complaint. In terms of another two visas I would like to talk about is parents and partners. So for partner visa, it used to be around 6 months processing for last year, but throughout the year, the processing on every pretty much application grew to 12 plus months at the moment. And a lot of people have this misconception that if they're getting married, that pretty much it's equal to partner visa granted. Unfortunately, again, it's not the case. Apart from getting married and being in de facto relationship or registering your de facto relationship in Australia, the couple will have to show a lot of evidence of their actual relationship, touching 4 pillars. So it has to be prepared correctly. And we've seen the refusals where partners are simply getting married and providing very minimum amount of documents and evidence, and department is not buying it. So you need to actually be careful. Again, if you're choosing partner visa as an option, you need to collect sufficient evidence to support your case. Another misconception is where, for example, students are studying and then it happened that they find a partner and then they have another year more of study and they are ready to apply for partner visa, and they would like, of course, to get rid of student visa, not to pay fee, not to study. However, while you're in Australia, you cannot do it, because then if you're canceling your student visa, then it cancels bridging visa associated with partner visa, and you end up with bridging visa E, the least preferred visa. So normally, when the partner visa is lodged, what student can do is to seek any deferral for a semester if you really can't cope with studying. You can back yourself up with documents from your doctor. So that's one way of deferring at least one semester. But then partner visa is usually not processed quick enough to basically overturn your current student visa. So majority of cases, students will have to continue studying and continue paying for tuition. So that's another misconception, that if partner visa lodged or any other visa lodged, then I don't need to attend student visa anymore. So that's not the case. In terms of parents visa, I would like to touch upon that as well. If the child who is in Australia get permanent residency visa status, that's pretty much will open the opportunity for the parents to consider parent visa options, bearing in mind that majority of parents visa option has balance of family test. So the child doesn't need to wait for citizenship to allow parents to consider parents visa options. That's the good point. And again, a lot of people think that they need to be citizens. No, they don't. Then bear in mind that currently processing time, even for contributory parents visas, are blown up until 14 years. So, and the queue is growing and growing. So department didn't announce anything yet, but there was rumors that system has to be changed somehow to allow control over the applications, because currently if the applicant is eligible, you can apply and put yourself in the queue pretty much. But these visas are capped to have certain amount of visas to be issued per year, and obviously the demand is way more than the actual places available, hence the queue is growing and growing. So in this case, department had this suggestion, but as I said, there is no certainty when and whether it's going to be implemented, to change the system of application from direct application into similar to expression of interest facility, where every year department may open the pool, the parents will apply, pre-apply, and then somebody will be selected, and then the process will go. So If you're going to be considering any parents' visas, I would suggest not to delay, because nobody knows what's going to be happening with them, with those visas, in the next year or year after. So you can at least secure your place in the queue by lodging. However, the processing time is very harsh for parents, and we're talking about 14 years of processing, even for contributor parents' visas, where you will be prepared to pay significant fees at the end of the process. If you're bringing your parent to lodge application from Australia, and mainly those applications will be for aged parent, that will attract bridging visas and allowing parents to sit in Australia and wait for the decision. So positive side of that your parent will be with you. Unless you have reciprocal Medicare arrangement, the medical insurance for aged parents are growing ridiculously amounts, and you need to also accommodate this information and in these costs into bringing parent in Australia and keeping aged parent in Australia, because that's significant. A lot of people don't know that the insurance may cost a lot of money, and with aged parents, every year parent may need more and more medical attention, which will boost the costs of keeping the parent here to a skyrocketed amount. So be careful with that. Another misconception overall, regardless of what visa you are considering, is not preparing for actual relocation, not studying English, and disregarding all the homework you're supposed to be doing, regardless of the application. And then the people are coming here, and it's going to be very hard to actually settle in Australia, an English speaking country, because it's going to be hard on a variety of levels. So my wrap up recommendation for you is to start learning English together with your family. Whoever is going to be relocating with you, it's preferred that they will learn English starting in your home country. The reason for that is English will be the main option for you to settling well. So the higher is English, the better it is for you. I still remember myself coming on a skilled visa. It was 15 years ago, more, where I came on a skilled visa, and my English was 7.5 IELTS that time. And I did struggle significantly because of a lot of variety of accents in Australia. It was very, very hard to comprehend who is talking about what. And it took me, with 7.5 English, around 6 months to settle pretty much to the comfortable level, to speak over the phone, to speak in person with a variety of people with variety of accents. So my advice is to start studying as soon as possible. And the same goes with not only adults but the children as well, because they're going to be relocating and they will face the same potential difficulties in settling into English speaking environment. So you're going to do yourself a huge favor of starting this process well in advance, rather than to come to Australia unprepared and then to top up any other issues and obviously stress level. You're going to be having limited English to express yourself. So migration for every single person will have a different reasoning why everybody would like to relocate here. So choose your reasons and ask yourself why you would like to live here. If you haven't explored the environment, if you haven't explored Australia, I'm personally welcoming you to make this short move to have a look at the country in order to understand whether in general this country will be a good fit for you and your family, and then plan ahead with your migration journey to Australia to make it a permanent residency. So I've finished with my overview. Now I'm going to attend the questions in the chat, and feel free to post more questions if you need me to comment on anything. So let's have a look. My sponsor is going to apply for nomination next month for 482 visa. Then after nomination, grant visa application lodgement. When I can expect my grant? My occupation is retail manager regional. Currently, we have one retail manager already sitting on the 3 months mark. We both lodged nomination and visa together. And actually, it may be a wise decision to lodge both together, because usually the nomination and visa are reviewed by the department again together, to have a look on the legitimacy of the claims, etc. So we usually lodging both together without waiting for nomination to be approved. If the 482 visa is rejected by any reason, but nomination is, for example, approved, then you'll have an option to go to tribunal or relodge. So you don't have to wait for nomination to be granted to lodge your visa. And another comment from me, especially for people who've been in Australia on a variety of visas, double check your claims, whatever you claimed in your previous applications, comparing to current application, especially in the space of education and work experience, because department already have this information, and a lot of people forget or tend to forget what they claimed prior, and then you may potentially have problems in reconciling the information. Doha has not yet released planning level for new year. When they will release it? If I'm planning level announcement get delayed, will visa grant for 188, 190, 491 will not start for next month? Not yet released as far as I know. It will be released usually late July. Then we will expect further releases per each state, what sort of quotas they're going to be looking at. 188 visas does not exist any longer for new lodgement. So it's been a while now since the program been pretty much put on hold, and department didn't come up with any other options for business visa, business people, apart from national innovation visa, which is really high ranked candidate, and the places are only 4,000 per year. So another options for businesses who would like to relocate to Australia, and we're talking about significant businesses, not small business, is to consider employed sponsored visas, where you can open the branch in Australia and relocate director and your team eventually. So that's the option. But the visa grants continue to be granted in the meantime. So I don't think visa grants and announcement of the planning levels relates to each other, to different processes. You will have to wait until it's been released to see what's going to be happening. Is that correct? For example, one student visa cannot be expanded. You have to return to country and lodge again. No, student visa can be extended, and some students decide to continue their study at a different course. For example, if they have no option for graduate visa, and if they want to extend their stay without touching graduate visa at the moment. So it is possible, unless you have any restrictions on your specific student visa. Usually a student visa can be extended, or you can enroll into new course and pretty much lodge new student visa, because for every student visa you will have to write information about genuine student, and that will relate to your previous study and your new study. So you will have to explain why you need more study in Australia, pretty much. I have skill assessment, engineer technologist, engineer English competent plus NATI. I have two options: submit expression of interest and improve English while waiting. improve my English when then submit my AOI? What would you recommend? I definitely recommend to submit now if you at least can accumulate 65 points. And also, interesting fact that a lot of people are scared of 491 visa and they're avoiding it, and then they are waiting for 190 or 189 on a minimum points, with nothing pretty much happening. So my advice to you would be to consider lodging expression of interest for every state where you will be eligible, and then improve your English. But you have to make that commitment to improve your English, because what's happening with a lot of my clients who we tend to take with competent English, and then we're forcing them to improve the English. And even with our collaboration, a lot of people put it on hold. So once it's lodged, nobody's bothered. So don't make this mistake, because then the time will fly and then you'll have no results, especially with the competent English for primary applicants. So my suggestion to lodge now, because the skill migration tend to be really cycling through a variety of options. So it was time after COVID where all of a sudden a lot of engineers start getting invites on 65 points. So that was the case some time ago, but you never know. So because the process is so unknown, simply I would suggest to lodge and then to update once new details are available. But English and improving English should be your main priority, because a lot of states were simply talking about at least proficient English or above for the applicants, and I believe this will stay for the next year as well. Thank you for updates. I would like to ask, what are the chances of getting the student to study at MMA instructor certificate? Continue in the next comment. I'm 37 and have had 2 previous Australian visa with no violation. If a student visa is granted likely for 1 year, is it realistic to find a job during the time I switch to work? Does it make sense to apply for this pathway? General advice, because realistically, if you've been already in Australia on 2 visas, I'm assuming it's been student visas. So really you need to know what sort of background you have already, whether you have any options to be eligible for employer sponsored visa with your previous background and previous work experience, what you were claiming on your student visas and the current student visa. So really this information needs to be assessed to then give you a realistic option whether you will be able to get any sort of visas. So if it's tourist visas, you still claimed some sort of employment, and then the question will be why MMA instructor certificate, and what would you like to achieve with that? Because only a certificate for 1 year will not give you nothing. If you're 37, depends what country you're coming from. So if it's not the exempt countries where you will be able to have graduate visa after 35, then there will be no graduate visa for you, specifically after 1 year course. So you cannot lodge your student visa from visitor visa, from tourist visa. So that's now in the legislation. So you have to lodge it from offshore. Then you really need to plan ahead, because 1 year of course it's very quick. It's going to be finishing very quickly, and it depends again if you're eligible for employer sponsored visa. Then yes, 1 year you get yourself here, and then you will have to work hard to find that employment and that sponsorship. Otherwise, you may plan for something longer, to apply for 2 year course or something, or selection of courses. Again, depends on your previous background to then allow you have enough time here to work and find a sponsor. Hope that makes sense. Thank you very much for all the questions. That was really active chat today, and I'm happy that people joined and we had a decent, meaningful conversation. Thank you very much for listening. So we will end this stream in a minute, and this stream will remain available for people who didn't attend today, or if you would like to share this stream with your friends, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. For those who would like any migration assistance, feel free to reach us out either by email or via social media. So we are available. We are on the Gold Coast, but we work with clients from all over the world. So, and any nationalities, it does not really matter. Thank you very much, guys, and enjoy your morning, midday, or end of the day, depending where are you in the world. Thank you.